Hey, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
I really like your shirt.
Oh, stop it.
Did you dress up today for a special reason?
You know, because it's the Readathon.
That's right. We're in the Readathon, and what we were talking about today, Kevin, is the cross-examination of Ms. Jennifer McCabe.
This took most of the week.
The Jennifer McCabe being on the stand took most of the week, but her cross-examination took place on Wednesday and yesterday, which was Friday. And it was kind of a doozy. I'm going to be honest with you. I was, when he began his cross-examination earlier in the week, I was feeling, as I said to you on the podcast, that Jen McCabe was doing very well.
Yeah.
Alan Jackson was scoring some points, but I always think through the minds of the jury. Like, what do they know about the case? What are their impressions? And if I were a juror and knew nothing or knew very little, it could very much look like this woman had been accused of something she didn't do. She was very, very composed.
I think the expectations were because she had done poorly in the first trial that she would do poorly again, that she would seem a little too angry or defensive. And for the first couple of days, I think we all can agree that she did not. She actually did a good job. And I think that plays into the importance of Friday.
It sure does. So we're going to talk about a few things about her testimony today. We're going to talk about some new stuff we learned about her interaction with the FBI. We're going to learn about a phone call that we didn't know about before.
Oh, I need to correct you. A other law enforcement agency.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yes.
A law enforcement agency that is not the Canton Police Department or the Boston Police Department. But if you lie to them...
Massachusetts State Police, yeah.
But if you lie to them... It's a crime.
It is a crime. All right.
Yes. We're going to talk about a little bit of her relationship with Michael Proctor. We're going to talk about a very damning group chat. And we're going to talk about the climax of the cross-examination, which was the Has Long to Die in Snow search.
Okay.
All right. So some general observations that I would like to share with you.
Go for it.
On Friday, Alan Jackson's affect was recalibrated.
All right.
Because I got the sense he had been expecting a very contentious cross-examination of Jennifer McCabe. By the way, the jurors last time in the trial said they found her credible. So in some regard, like her anger worked to her benefit, her indignation, like the attitude was
her
very
resolve.
much, I can't even believe I'm here. I can't believe you're asking me these questions. Why am I here? That wasn't the case this time. The first couple of days when she was being direct examined at the beginning of her cross-examination with Alan Jackson, he was ready for a fight. She was doing the opposite of putting up a fight. And he seemed a little off his game in terms of trying to craft a story. Remember, they had all day Thursday off.
Right. So everybody can sort of replan.
It helped.
It gives Jen more time to huddle up with Carrie and then go to the DA's office and ask for...
More help?
More help?
Yeah.
That you're going to ask for? Okay.
Right. But if you're wondering whether or not that day off worked to Alan Jackson's advantage, it definitely did. He was very recalibrated. He came in very in control.
Not just with the witness.
No.
All right.
I will say that was my other observation. There was a lot of feedback on law social media, which, by the way, is a whole part of social media that I have now discovered as a result of this case.
Law Twitter.
Law Twitter,
talk.
Law Talk,
Yeah.
Law Tube. But also, many of these lawyers, some of them have very much taken a side. Others have said, I'm just observing and this is what I see. And others are like, Karen Reed is guilty. Most of them work for Court TV. Or have their own bad podcast.
Sure. All right. Yeah.
Here we are, by the way, making our own podcast. I'm not throwing stones, I swear. All right. So one of the things that many of these lawyers said, especially the ones who are sort of on the outside, including a former Massachusetts judge who tweets and who I guess has written a book and who is sort of a media person now. She was a juvenile court judge, and she was just very adamant that Judge Cannoni's behavior in court with witnesses has been really inappropriate. So she will interject during cross-examination. This is typically during cross-examination. She'll interject. She'll say, is that what you meant? Do you remember? Okay, Mr. Jackson, I think we've had enough. Like, she will just not let him do his work.
Right.
And it almost seems to be bailing witnesses out over and over and over.
Right. She's trying to manage the courtroom, maybe doing time management, but yeah, she seems to be, which, a judge can go in and just try to clarify.
They're not supposed to. Yeah.
The amount of this happening when it doesn't need to happen at all is concerning to some observers.
That's right. She's not supposed to be questioning witnesses. She's supposed to be playing the neutral arbiter. Yesterday, Friday, Alan Jackson seemed to have gotten the feedback that every time she does this, he should request a sidebar and intervene and challenge her on it. So I saw a lot more of that on Friday, and it seemed to work. So one really interesting example is she would answer a question. She'd be asked a question, a challenging question, like, did you say this to this person? And this is one of her answers that our friend Mel actually transcribed for me. I'm answering questions based on my memory of what happened on the 28th and 29th. I've testified multiple times to many agents and many juries. To pinpoint one convo is a bit of a challenge for me. What I can tell you is what I can remember from that day, which is I'm sure should be very similar to what I answered because it's the same. Okay. So this is she basically saying the words might be different, but the answer is the same. She said that many, many times. And at one point, Alan Jackson said to the judge, would you please instruct the witness to answer the question? And the Judge Cannoni said, I think she did. And he said, sidebar. The sidebar lasted a little while. After the sidebar, she said, Ms. McCabe, I'm going to give you one chance to answer that question. You need to answer that question. Okay. So I was like, oh my God, the challenge happened. It worked. He probably pointed out some point of order or law to her and she responded, right?
Right.
So that was my general observation. My other observation about yesterday was that Alan Jackson's story crafting was brilliant. And Jen McCabe's affect on the stand in the prior days worked to his advantage tremendously.
I know what you mean.
Why do you think?
Well, because she came off very, we'll just say, calm and credible. She didn't lose her composure. She definitely seemed to be, it wasn't a parry, but she definitely seemed to be handling the cross-examination well. There was a lot of sort of the equivalent of, I don't recall, where she could kind of with apologies and kind of wiggling out. So it set a baseline of, instead of the baseline being she's angry coming in, like kind of in the first trial, she ended up performing in such good light that it created a real contrast to how things went down on Friday when she started to crumble a bit.
Well, she got caught in some whoppers on Friday, Kevin.
Yeah.
This is why. Remember, she has given countless interviews. She's given interviews to the state police. She's given interviews to the Canton police. She's given interviews to she's testified in front of the grand jury. She testified in a previous trial. So she has told these stories again and again and again and again. So would you like to hear some of the things that were revealed on Friday?
Yeah.
There was one big one. One of the things that came out in the prior trial, which she was not prepared for until just before she testified because the prosecutors told her it was coming, so she prepared an answer. She had never before disclosed that on January 30th, she visited Officer Michael Lank from the Canton PD's house for about 45 minutes.
Okay, so this is after John's body has been discovered.
Yes.
And so stuff is happening. Investigators want to talk to witnesses.
Yes.
She never disclosed that she went to an investigator's house?
Never. She never disclosed it. It was in the files that the FBI put together, the feds put together, which were then given to both sides. And then she was prepared for that, quote, ambush at trial, and she already had a story for it. The story being that she and Carrie Roberts went there to drop off Carrie Roberts' daughter. They went there straight from One Meadows, which was John O'Keefe's house, where the whole family had been gathering for hours.
I remember this, yeah.
And she was very prepared, and Alan Jackson was very upset with this. And they actually had a motion about it before this trial saying, barring the prosecutors from talking to witnesses during the trial.
Yes, yeah, I remember this one.
That's what this was about with this story.
Yeah, we talked about that, yeah.
So it was revealed on Friday, yesterday, that story was not true. The story where she went directly from Meadows with Carrie Roberts to Michael Lank's house. She was presented with location data, which I think is from their expert Richard Green's new analysis of her phone. There's something important foundational I just want to mention right now. If a witness says they don't remember something and then they're asked, would you like to see something to help your memory? And they say yes, that can then be entered into the record.
It opens the door.
It opens the door to put something in, a transcript, for instance, from a previous proceeding, or grand jury testimony, or in this case, location data from Jen McCabe's phone.
Okay.
So, would it help your memory if I showed you something about the layout, what happened that day? Sure, she says. She looks at it. He says, "What does that look like?" She said, "A map." Objection, says Brennan. Long ass sidebar. Long ass sidebar. Comes back. What does this look like, Jen McCabe? Yet another
Rephrase,
one.
yeah.
Another one that he won, apparently. I hate using the word winning and losing, but he prevailed, okay?
Yeah.
So this location data shows.
Ask it another way, Mr. Jackson.
That Jen McCabe went to John O'Keefe's house to visit his parents and family, and some of the kids were there, etc., on the 30th from about noon to about 5:30 at night, okay? She then left there, did not go straight to Michael Lang's house, went to her own house for a little bit, then left her own house. I'm assuming, she says Carrie Roberts was driving. Carrie Roberts says she was driving. We're just going to assume that's what happened, even though we don't really know at this point. Went from there, then drove by 34 Fairview, where they were for about 4 minutes, and then went to Michael Lang's house.
So that drive-by of Fairview was not disclosed before?
Never.
Okay. And 4 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And what did she say happened in those 4 minutes?
She said they were just driving by to look again at the scene, to remember what happened, to talk about what happened. They're basically being looky-loos at 34 Fairview.
It took 4 minutes to drive by the house?
That's what they're saying.
They didn't stop. Nobody came out. They just...
That's what she says.
Rolled by.
Right.
But the thing is, this was not disclosed earlier. We didn't know about this.
We didn't know about this earlier.
Where did this come from?
I think new analysis of Jen McCabe's cell data from their expert, I believe. I believe that's where it came from.
Yeah. And then where did it go? After spending 4 minutes at Fairview, just being in their own
doing something.
Grief,
yes,
and processing that, and definitely not talking to the homeowner again.
Definitely not.
Where did they go?
They went to Officer Michael Lang's house, where the story is that they have both told. They sat in Carrie Roberts' car for about 45 minutes in the dark and the snow and the freezing cold. Remember, it was very, very cold.
Sure, yeah.
They sat in her car for 45 minutes, and Officer Lang's wife came out, got into the car, and sat with them. And at one point, maybe Jen McCabe went into the house to use the bathroom. Now, this is interesting because when she was confronted with going in the house earlier, I believe in the previous trial, she initially denied it, and then it turned into, I may have gone in to go to the bathroom. So I think there's something about her phone or something that indicates that she wasn't sitting there. But now she says she may have gone in to use the bathroom. And he's like, so for real, you sat in your coat, your warm coat, in a hot car for 45 minutes in the dark, talking to Michael Lang's wife. That's what she says happened. Okay.
Not an actual investigator.
No, not an actual investigator. Of course, a recused investigator, but somebody from whom she could certainly be getting information.
Right.
Now,
Somebody that she has a personal relationship with already.
Yes. She went to high school with him. He went to high school with Brad. They all went to high school together.
They all went to the same one-room schoolhouse on the prairie. Fucking people.
This all, by the way, plays very much into something that Melanie and I talked about the other day that I just want to reiterate and remind you of and give you my advanced thoughts on. So Melanie talked about how Jen McCabe seems like one of the people that has to know everything. She has to figure everything out, be in control, know everything. I think that's right. I think she, in other words, is the kind of soccer mom who brings the snacks when it's not her day because she's afraid the mom who's supposed to bring them won't do it. So she's like, I'm going to bring snacks too.
I've got another
backup
one.
Snacks.
As an umpire, all the dads want to be a coach on the team. They get to wear the shirt and stuff. The moms usually don't. But if there's a mom that also wants to do something, the coach lets the mom keep the scorebook. So they give the scorebook and write it down. And some moms, this isn't a coaching position. You're just there and you're just trying to remember what the score is and count the pitches. And then some moms want to talk to the umpire and give orders to the umpire to say this, and that's not your place.
No.
And you're just trying to get involved.
Yeah.
And you just need to shut the fuck up because this is not your job.
Yes.
But you have to insert yourself.
Yes.
And that's kind of what Jen reminds me of. I'm going to go and I'm going to keep the scorebook. And Blue, can you have that runner on first base back up a little bit?
Do you have any idea how many kids I have who've played this sport already? I know everything, right?
Right, yeah.
Now, I know this sounds very gendered, but keep in mind, this is how Jen McCabe describes herself. A regular mom, a sports mom, a mom, a mother, a mother. So she's put herself in this box. I'm not putting her in this box.
Yeah. By the way, some moms actually do get to coach and they get to be head coach and stuff
and
like
some
that.
moms
if
are
they want to do that,
right?
I just wanted to just don't say that. It's just the dads. It's a lot of dads because they want to fucking play baseball and they want to wear the pajamas the same way. But usually it's this mom needs something to do and hopefully this shuts her the fuck up. And And for some moms, it doesn't.
Right. All right.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's
so
who she reminds
imagine
me of.
that Jen McCabe is that kind of mom who just needs to feel like she is doing something, that she's in control of the situation.
Yeah, especially if she's been thrust into something.
Imagine she's put in this situation where she knows this thing happened. So she appoints herself the gatherer of intel, the spreader of stories that will shape other stories. You know who has not said a fucking word to anybody or done any of this? The actual likely mastermind of all of this, Brian Albert. Brian Albert is probably like, everybody shut the fuck up. You don't talk.
Yeah.
And Jen McCabe just can't not do it. Okay. So at some point.
I've been in that room.
Yes.
And I know that the best way to not get caught and go to jail is to keep your mouth closed.
Absolutely.
Trust me on this one.
Absolutely.
Keep
All right.
your orange slices to yourself.
Another big reveal that came out sort of along these lines. Jen McCabe gave an interview to the FBI after they rolled up on her outside her house. And she admitted on the stand that she told, and we talked about this in the last podcast, basically told 5 lies, and 3 of them before the FBI even got into the house, right? So something that came out was that she lied to the FBI about who she had spoken to. This was earlier, in the time before they were there and the time after they were there. So the juror has in their mind that she's already mushy with phone calls, et cetera, with who she called, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Jen McCabe has testified in previous proceedings that Karen Reed called her at 4:53 or something like that on the morning of the 29th, hysterical. She called her from John's niece's phone. So she picked it up. She's hysterical. She's screaming, yada, yada, yada. At that point, Jen McCabe is saying now, at that point, Karen Reed told her about she cracked her taillight, which has never come up before. After she hangs up the phone with Karen, and by the way, she's always told people that Karen then just showed up at her house. But apparently she told the cops right after this that she told Karen to come to her house. Okay?
Yeah.
So after this
Someone
phone
shows
call,
up at my house at 5 whatever in the morning.
5, yeah.
I'm in my pajamas.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to go on a tour of town.
Right.
All right.
So she has always testified that after the phone call and before Karen showed up, she's testified to calling Julie McCabe, I don't know why, and Tom Beatty. All right. Tom Beatty is a neighbor of 34 Fairview with a daughter that Colin allegedly texted that night, the night of John O'Keefe's death, et cetera.
Yeah, and his name came up out of the fight.
His name came up, and I
name,
think that Jen was, maybe trying to either see if he had seen John or whatever. For whatever reason, she called Tom Beatty.
Right.
What she has never disclosed before and did not come up in the last trial, another call she made at 5:07 in the morning was to 34 Fairview to her sister Nicole's phone.
Did we know this before?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. It didn't come up.
Did she delete it?
She may have, but it didn't come up during the first trial. We don't know how they know this now, but all we know is it never came up before.
So she called 34 Fairview before they rolled up.
Right.
And they talked for 30-something seconds?
The phone call lasted 38 seconds. She was asked, did you speak to your sister? She said, no, I did not speak to my sister. He didn't ask a follow-up question. Did you speak to someone else on your sister's phone? But she says they didn't speak even though the call lasted 38 seconds. Why is this important?
Well, I mean, it certainly could be interpreted as her giving a warning to people at 34 Fairview that Karen is going to be driving around looking for John.
Right.
And if John hasn't been discovered yet, then he's about to be.
Right. Well, Karen, I think, has said that when she called Jen, like she just wanted to go out and look for John right then. Like she was going to go to 34 Fairview. And Jen may have said to her, come here instead.
Right.
All right. So this is important. It's also important because the testimony has always been that Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, Jen McCabe's sister, Coco Albert, were asleep, sound asleep.
Which is why they didn't respond to the
so sound asleep
okay.
that even though there was bedlam happening on their lawn, they never went outside. If there was a 38-second phone call with Nicole, it would prove that at least Nicole was not asleep. All right? So that's big. It also, by the way, I can't help but think there is this, temperature dropping of the phone after 12:38 that went down to a certain point, and then in the early morning, it only went down 7 more degrees. So there is this potential idea that maybe this phone call was what made the move to get John moved out onto the lawn. So he could have been moved onto the lawn that late. All right. Remember, it's still dark, pitch black. The next big thing that came up, The group chat. Do you know about this group chat?
This was a chat that started after John was discovered and the investigation was ongoing. And the people on the chat included, I think, Jen and Matt McCabe, Brian Albert, and Nicole Albert, and that's it.
Yeah, so it was her sister and her brother-in-law and her husband and her.
Okay.
Moved to February 1st.
Okay.
February 1st, Carrie Roberts is at Jen McCabe's house making their timeline. The timeline, by the way, that her sister transcribed, and as Alan Jackson pointed out to the jury, her sister was in the courtroom that day. Denise did not look happy at being pointed to and identified in open court. She had a puss. Like, don't drag me the fuck into this testimony. Right. All right, so Trooper Proctor calls this afternoon, this February 1st afternoon. So there's this very interesting group chat where it is very clear Trooper Proctor is talking to Carrie Roberts, interviewing Carrie Roberts at Jen McCabe's house. And it is very clear that Jen and Matt McCabe are listening into this conversation. One of the things that happened the day before was to the group chat at 8 p.m. on the 29th. Jen texted this group. Carrie talked to the cops. She kept it simple. All right. And they're checking each other for updates. So the next day, group chat, 12:50 p.m. to about 5:30 that evening. This is where this infamous thing happens. There's something that says, Julie says Channel 4 is in D&E. This is Julie Albert, told someone in the family.
D&E is the pizza place.
That Channel 4 news crew was in Chris Albert's pizza place. Matt McCabe texts the group. Tell Chris to ask some questions. Eating, I assume. Tell them the guy never went in the house. We knew this before. This was very damning. And it's like, well, he just meant tell them the truth that the guy never went in the house because they've all testified.
One way to interpret that instruction.
Notably, that same television station, Channel 4, reported that night that there was ring footage of Karen Read hitting John O'Keefe.
Which never materialized.
Right. Didn't exist, and Channel 4 said it was a source close to the investigation.
Sure, I mean...
Chris Albert's pretty close to the investigation.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Right? Again, now they are listening in to Carrie talking to Trooper Proctor. Jen to the group. She is telling him everything. All right? So they basically, they're listening in to Carrie telling Proctor stuff, quote, all the stuff. 2:55. All right. Matt to the group at 4:35. Yup, if she pleads out, it will end. If she fights it, it will be an episode.
Yeah. Now, certainly it sounds like Matt is hoping that she just takes a plea and this whole thing goes away.
Yep.
I mean, to me, doesn't seem like the compassionate thing that a friend
if they thought
would
she
hope.
did it, if they thought she did it, would they want her to plea and have it be, quote, all over?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. It seems like maybe not. Who's to say?
Yeah.
Really? But again, you keep piling this on. It certainly doesn't give the impression of people who want justice.
Right. So now, remember, Carrie Roberts is being interviewed by Michael Proctor at Jen's house. Jen to the group, directed to Matt. Are you listening? Call us after, says Nicole. This girl could write a book nonstop, says Matt. I love it, says Jen. She's telling them everything, says Jen. Now, keep in mind, Jackson is having Jen read all of these texts out loud.
Not an actor?
Not an actor.
No, okay, all right.
Matt McCabe, we're going to miss the basketball game at this rate.
Oh, no. God damn.
God damn it. We wouldn't want to miss the basketball game. All right, so wouldn't this be textbook?
Would this be the kids' basketball game as opposed to the Celtics?
Probably.
Probably, yeah. Damn it.
Jackson to Jen McCabe, wouldn't this not be textbook collusion between witnesses to get stories straight? Objection.
Long
sidebar.
Yeah, sidebar. Okay.
Comes back from the sidebar. Wouldn't you say you were colluding and organizing your statements, Jackson asked. So he's allowed to use the word
just
colluding
rephrase,
in a different way.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was this whole thing on redirect. I should mention that what Brennan had Jen do was read some other texts from her phone to people like Carrie Roberts and others, basically saying very different kinds of things, that she's concerned, she just blah, blah, blah. And Jackson on recross was like, is Carrie Roberts an Alberta McCabe? No. Is this person an Alberta McCabe? No. So they weren't, and like over and over and over again. So they weren't in your inside circle. So he's made the point very clear that she talks one way to her inside circle and is presenting another facet to the world. Okay. So I'm not doing these exactly in order, but now we have two really bad looks for the jury. Two. Michael Proctor. She talked to Michael Proctor dozens and dozens and dozens of times between the time of the killing, the time of the death, and through the end of March, which was when he had all of her phone records in front of him and in front of her. And he says, I assume you talked to him dozens of times after that. She said, well, at some point it calmed down, but then in the summer of 2023, we started talking again. She wanted to bring the harassment in. He did not take the bait. He did not ask her why. Okay. In fall of 2023, she had an interview with Brian Tully, and she told Brian Tully, according to his report, that she had never met Michael Proctor. All right.
Okay.
Now, what Jen is saying when confronted with all these things that cops wrote down that she says are different than what she said, in every single instance, she says, I know what I said. I know what this piece of paper says, but I also know what I said. So she over and over and over again said that police officers, state police officers, grand jury, transcribers got it wrong when they wrote down what she knows she said.
Everybody else got it wrong.
Yep.
All the cops got it wrong.
Yep.
All the other people got it wrong. That isn't what I said.
Yep.
All right. And I'm sure that sounded really credible.
Well, she's saying everybody got it wrong except for me. And she's caught in the lie about where she went. She's caught in the group chat thing, which looks real, real bad. So there's a few things like this. All right. Now we get to the butt dials.
Okay.
Remember the butt dials?
Yeah. These were all phone calls. Is she saying that the calls to John were the butt dials?
Yeah, so she acknowledges that she called John at 12:14 a.m. on the 29th. He called her back at 12:18, and that she then spoke to him for the last time at 12:18. Okay, all that time between then and about 12:45-ish, 12:50-ish, she had 7 more phone calls to his phone.
Wow. Okay.
All right, these were phone calls that, according to the call records, were not answered.
Okay.
All right. Her explanation for those phone calls at the previous trial was they must have been butt dials. I was texting him. I put my phone in my pocket, and you know how they say pocket.
Yeah.
And it must have dialed him.
Yeah. By the way, did you know that if you're somehow accidentally engaged with the screen on the iPhone, that it doesn't telephone, it gives you a FaceTime option to FaceTime voice or FaceTime call. So it doesn't operate the phone.
What do you
app.
have to do to operate the phone app, Kevin?
You got to open it. And certainly if the phone has been in your back pocket and you don't have it set to, automatically shut down, to never close, you still have to open it biometrically.
That's right.
Which at this point, most of these iPhones are face. So your butt is not your face.
Right.
And
now, the inside of your jeans pocket is not your face, for sure.
Yeah. And I will say that the lived experience of more than one juror is that they have an iPhone and they have made a call on it. And so when they hear Jen McCabe say, I didn't know that I had to open the phone app to call, that is not credible to them.
No, not only that, but as people have pointed out, this is the missing piece. This is what was missing last time in the cross-examination of Jen McCabe. He made her say all the butt dial stuff, but then he never illustrated the next step, which is how the fuck would these be butt dials? You have to interact with your phone to make a phone call.
Right.
You have to unlock it. You have to, and she's like, well, maybe my phone must have already been open. Well, then you at least have to switch from the text app to the phone app. And if you make a butt dial, most importantly, and you don't know you've called somebody, what happens on the other end?
It keeps ringing, and then it goes to voicemail.
And how long would those voicemails be each time? Do you know?
4 minutes long.
That's right. That's the maximum length of a voicemail on an iPhone.
Right. So those phone calls had to be manually ended.
That's right. So 7 phone calls. Alan Jackson points out you had to have interacted with your phone at least 14 times, opening it, calling, closing it, opening it, calling, closing it. And she absolutely denied it. Absolutely denied it. At this point, she is looking like somebody who is comfortable massaging reality. Let's put it that way. Very comfortable. Now, I haven't even covered everything, but just with you right now, I've covered like 4 major things.
Right. So let's think about this. This is what we found out on Friday that wasn't previously known. That Jen and Carrie did a drive-by of 34 Fairview.
The very least a drive-by.
On their way to go talk to a police investigator and spent 4 minutes in front of 34 Fairview, which they said was to process their grief and definitely not talk to the Albertson side right before they went to talk to a police investigator.
Well, they said they were talking to his investigator's wife.
Right. And then we found out for the first time that Jen made a telephone call to her sister at 34 Fairview at
5:07 a.m.
5:07 a.m. before she and Karen and Carrie drove by and found John's body.
That's right.
So
this is sus as hell.
It's sus as hell because then it implies she said she didn't talk to Nicole, although somebody using Nicole's phone talked to her for 38 seconds. A warning?
We don't know.
Who knows?
All we know is that this phone call has never before been disclosed, which means she lied about it.
Yeah.
She'll just say she doesn't recall, but she lied about it because keep in mind, every time the prosecutor asked her a question, and Alan Jackson pointed this out, she remembered everything.
Right.
Every time he would ask her a question, she didn't recall things she said, things she did, etc. She only recalled, quote, what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and why is it that we didn't know about that 507 phone
That
call?
I don't know, but I just know that it didn't come out in the previous trial, and it's kind of a bombshell.
Was it deleted?
I'm sure it was deleted.
And then just now recovered.
Yeah. Or something.
That's really interesting. That's super interesting.
Yeah. All right.
And we also learned that she thinks that her phone is a 2007 Nokia with physical buttons.
With an exposed keyboard that can just call people.
Yeah, that will just randomly call people, and that she has no idea how to operate the phone app on her phone. Unlike everybody else in that courtroom.
Right.
She's the only one that has no idea how that works.
Right.
Which looks really credible.
That's right. So these are some whoppers that sort of came out, and apparently the reporters in the courtroom saying the jury were taking copious notes and sometimes had looks of surprise on their faces.
Why not?
Now we get to the discovery of John O'Keefe on the lawn at 34 Fairview and what Jen did when she got there.
Okay.
Alan Jackson has her look at all this dash cam footage and has her point out again and again and again that if there's one person there who's talking to the cops or talking to first responders, it is Jen McCabe. And he's like, wouldn't you say that you were the one controlling the narrative at that time? No, I wasn't controlling the narrative, but I was talking to the first responders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then, I'm going a little out of order, but this is important. He said, you were very concerned about your friend, right? Yes. I was hysterical about you were hysterical about your friend, right? You thought he was going to die, right? Right. So that's why you called 911, right? It took them several minutes to arrive.
Sure.
Could you think of somebody else trained as a first responder on 34 Fairview who you might have sought out for help?
I'm sorry. I called an hour ago and talked to them, but apparently they went back to sleep.
Yeah.
I was waiting for them to come out and render aid.
No, never did.
Never
And
did.
she said it was her brother-in-law, Brian Albert. Another thing that he asked her, another big moment was, how come you didn't go in and check to see if your sister and brother-in-law were okay? There was a dead guy on their lawn. And she said, because I knew in that moment, because Karen had said I hit him, that Karen had hit him, and I didn't know that there would be taillight found next to him, but I knew what happened, and that is totally separate from inside the house. I knew they were fine. I knew they were fine.
Because I just called them about 90 minutes ago and talked to somebody in the house for 38 seconds, just an hour before we showed up and found the body on the front lawn.
Right.
Okay.
Now, let me tell you what I think was the most important thing that happened on Friday, in my opinion. And again, I've gone slightly out of order because I just want to show you sort of the pattern of what he was able to draw out. We now are at the point where Jen McCabe has gone home from 34 Fairview. And he says, you were using Google at that time, were you not?
Right.
I don't know.
This is after the party.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. She just refused. And he's like, come on. Like, you have been asked about this 10 million times. What did you Google? And she talked about Googling the two sports situations, right?
Yep.
And he said, you made a Google search at 2:27 a.m., right? I don't recall. I don't know. I don't recall. I don't know. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Can you show me a report that says I did that? She says. And he, at the very best moment, chooses to break character and is like, come on, Ms. McCabe. You've been asked about this dozens of times. And she says, yes, by you. And he says, and by Prosecutor Lally, by the cops, by another agency that we cannot give the name of. Like, and she's just like, I don't know. So finally she says, if you say something like, if you say whatever.
This has already been established.
It's already been established.
By all the other prosecution witnesses.
She's even said what that Google search was, that it wasn't the
227.
She knows
what that is.
She knows the time.
Again, the only person in the world who doesn't know what 227 means is also the person who doesn't know how to use her iPhone.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So she says, I don't recall making a search at 2:27 in the morning, but the paper says it. Once again.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
And then Alan Jackson says, you claim it was at 6:23 and 6:24 that you made those searches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not claiming it. It's the truth of what happened, she says. I'm not claiming it. It's the truth. All right?
Mm-hmm.
And he then says to her then, are you aware that last week, Carrie Roberts denied hearing Karen Read ask you to make that search?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I wasn't aware of that. Which it's very hard to buy, but whatever.
We don't have that group chat anymore.
Right.
How come they're not using Signal?
They probably are.
At this point.
They probably are. But now keep in mind.
I read an interesting thing in the Atlantic last week.
Apparently ARCA uses Signal now. That's like a big red flag. Alan Jackson uses Signal, probably for good reason, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he basically got her in this moment where she had to acknowledge that Carrie did not hear Karen say this, even though she previously testified that they were all sitting in the backseat of a cop car when Karen asked her this question, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, and what I think is the most important moment on Friday, are you saying, Ms. McCabe, that it's just your word that Karen Read asked you to Google something about hypothermia, that it's just your word? Your word against essentially everyone.
Mm-hmm.
She had to say yes.
Big moment. The way that the reason that really worked was she did a great job on previous days on cross-examination, and then on Friday she was caught that she hadn't disclosed that they drove by Fairview and stayed there for 4 minutes before going to talk to a police officer.
Yep.
She hadn't disclosed that she had made a telephone call at 5:07 before John's body was found, 234 Fairview. And of course, then she does this crazy thing where she pretends she's the only person in the world who doesn't know how to operate her own telephone to make telephone calls.
She lied to Tully about how many times she's spoken to Proctor.
Right. So the jury all along has been getting the message that she has been obfuscating, but about what? That's like the only thing that hasn't landed. I mean, I think it was pretty clear that she was being evasive. And when it came down to credibility, it was the last moment. This was the whole thing it was building to, right? The most important, or one of the most important claims of the trial, it's all your word, the person who didn't disclose all this stuff.
Who says the police got all their reports wrong.
Every police officer, their report is wrong. They wrote it down all bad. I mean, it is
You didn't mean
Michael
what
Proctor.
It looks like you meant in that group chat.
Didn't mean all these things that contradict and undermine your credibility. In the end, it comes down to your word versus her word.
Your word versus other people, too.
Yeah.
Because other people have said that she said, I hit him. That she asked, that she's the one who always said that Karen asked her for the Google search, but Carrie Roberts corroborated it at the grand jury. That's now out. So she's saying for this specific thing, it is your word. And keep in mind, the jury knows that she has said this entire time, there's a lot of stuff about this time that I don't have super clear, but the thing I will never forget is Karen Read saying, I hit him. Now, they are going to hear from other first responders who did not hear that. They're going to hear that nobody put it in their police reports. They're going to hear all of that. So then they went home for the weekend with this impression of Jen McCabe. And I got to say, I keep calling her Karen Read because Judge Bev Canoni called her Ms. Read a bunch of times when she was sitting on the stand, which was very uncomfortable. Yeah. So they're going to go home. And I felt weird about Jen McCabe being so early in the trial, although she could be recalled again by the defense. She's on their list. He didn't say he was going to do that. But don't you think now, if the impression is, in fact, we don't believe Jen McCabe, that all this stuff that comes after that could potentially support Jen McCabe not being believed is more likely to be taken seriously rather than being some wild, fringy idea?
Yeah. Well, one strategy is that you put her there towards the end, and then the jury has to decide if everything that they previously heard that they should go back. They should mentally go back and think twice about. Or you put her up early, then basically they're thinking about whether or not now to believe this information because of what they did with Jen McCabe. It's almost like then the prosecution's new evidence is trying to refute their own witness.
It's like they're defense attorneys for Jen McCabe, right? Instead of being prosecutors. The other interesting thing I want to point out about this whole exchange and all of these things that happened. In the first trial, Lally was an objecting machine. He objected constantly. And a lot of his objections were upheld.
They also didn't explain the foundation for the objection.
They don't have to in Massachusetts, right?
Right, because that wasn't one of the motions here or discussion.
Is like,
put it on the record.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say, during Jen McCabe's whole cross-examination, Brennan objected very few times. And when he objected, he would say, I'm objecting, but only as to form. I'm objecting, but only. And then anytime he objected to anything substantial and that the judge wanted to withhold it, that Alan Jackson would call a sidebar.
Yeah.
And he did not win a lot of those ultimately, even though she said the objection is sustained in the courtroom, then it was like they'd go back and something would have changed. So I found myself thinking he was very quiet. At one point, people say he told her to like settle down or to keep it cool or whatever. I don't know if he actually was saying that to her or whatever, but he was caught in a little hot mic weird moment. But it almost felt in the moment like, does he think she's actually lying? Is that why he's like, is he changing his? I know that's not what happened, but it's how it felt.
But also objection also sends a message to the jury that this is not going well for the prosecution. Do you want to put that in their heads?
Right.
Like, I need to save this witness because it makes it look like I have a big problem with what she said. What she's saying is problematic, and I know that.
Right.
And so by kind of letting her say it, one idea is that the jury might not pick up on how damaging it is. Right. And it just says, yeah, she's being truthful.
Right. Now, most of Jen McCabe's cross-examination was before lunch. They took a long lunch break. When they returned from lunch, Peggy O'Keefe and Paul O'Keefe were no longer in the courtroom. And this is the first time that it's ever happened. Now, this probably means nothing. Maybe somebody had diarrhea or something.
Yeah, it's Friday.
But it is notable that after this, I'm comfortable saying, kind of disastrous testimony for the prosecution from Jen McCabe that they weren't there to see the redirect. All right.
You got to cut him some grace. This is
of course.
This is days and days of hearing about what happened to their son.
It's just notable that they, for the first time, were not there. Okay. Yeah. So just very briefly, I thought that was going to be the end of the day. It wasn't. There was one more witness that I can go through in just a minute and tell you about. This is Hannah Knowles. She's a chemist, scientist from the Massachusetts State Crime Lab. Never any scandals there, by the way, which, by the way, she had nothing to do with. I'm not implying she did. She was questioned by Lally. Hey, Lally.
He was still in this. Yeah. I can't believe it.
About how her training, what she does, et cetera. And basically her job is to do, tests, chemistry tests to come up with forensic results. Forensic, of course, meaning relating to law, not relating to death. So she did this extrapolation from the blood test done at the hospital of Karen Reed's blood alcohol level. And she's able to sort of say at the time of the test, it was between, the low and a high, between like 0.7 something and 0.9 something. But then because using this mathematical formula, this chemistry formula, they go back in time. The police give them a time and say, what would it have been based on this person's weight, whatever.
They're carbon dating the sample to get the alcohol level.
And of course, the number is much higher. It's like 0.1 something, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost the end of the day. It's like 3:35. And because Bev hates 4 o'clock now. She used to hate 4:30 and now she hates 4.
Right.
She gives David Yannetti, she's like, you have 5 minutes. And he's like, that's all I need, pretty much. He gets up, says to this lovely, smart woman, your lab is accredited, right? Yes. What does accreditation mean? She explains that. They get inspected, yada, yada, yada. But this test fell outside of your accreditation, didn't it? Yes. And she seemed very happy to share this. She was not obfuscating. Absolutely, yes. Why? Well, because we're not the one who took the blood. We didn't do it. And we can't put accreditation on a test. We're basically given something. We do the math. We give the math back to the police, but we can't speak to the validity of the thing we were given.
Right.
So that was it. That was it for the cross. It was really effective. I'm not saying that the jury doesn't believe that Karen had a lot of alcohol in her system, but when Karen Reed came out of the courtroom and was asked about this by reporters, because this is the final thing that happened in the day, her response was, garbage in, garbage out. Which is very Karen Read.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a basic summary of what happened on Friday, which in my mind was like watching a court procedural on TV. And listen, as much as I feel distasteful calling this like murder trial where someone's life is on the line and someone has been killed, entertaining, if you're the kind of person who thinks that court will be entertaining and usually let down by how boring it is, you will not be let down by Friday. I put the link to Friday in yesterday's blog post of the Readathon, so just click that and you'll be able to watch all of Friday there. And if you want to fast forward to the juicy parts, feel free. But I would just say all of Jen McCabe on the stand was riveting. Absolutely riveting.
Yeah. She certainly didn't seem to help herself by doing so well earlier and then just saying, I don't remember, this isn't true, everybody else wrote this down wrong, I don't know anything about these new searches, I don't know anything about how to work my phone, and I guess I have to admit that I forgot that I called the house 90 minutes before John's body was found, and then I spent a bunch of time
in front of the house.
90
minutes, I guess about an hour and 20 minutes or so, yeah.
And then I spent a whole bunch of time in front of the house, definitely not talking to anyone for 4 minutes before I went to go talk to a police investigator.
Wife.
Although I never actually talked to the police investigator. I just stayed outside in the dark talking to his wife instead.
In the freezing cold. With my warm coat on in a hot car.
Oh, man. Maybe it's because she didn't know how to work her telephone that she couldn't get a hold of anybody.
Yeah. Why did the conversation have to happen in person? Another small lie there was that she told investigators or the grand jury earlier that they went there to pick up Carrie Roberts' daughter. That was the first time she told that story. And then it turned into we were actually dropping her off. So all these little details changing. But she will never forget that Karen told her to make that Google search. And she will never forget Karen saying, I hit him, which again appears in no police reports, no first responder reports. It doesn't appear until like 2 years later. So.
Right. And the jury has to decide based on everything that they heard whether or not she's credible. That's something. And
you decide, America. You can decide.
By the way, that group chat, I mean, doesn't it really seem like Carrie is their patsy?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Like that she thinks she's in on, she's in a tight circle, but it just seems like not only were they feeding her stuff, they were pleased with the fact that she was carrying out what they wanted her to say.
What Jen wanted her to say.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, Brian Albert is privy to all of this. He is barely present in these texts that they're reading in court. Barely present. He is just like, probably thinking like, I'm a cop. I know we shouldn't be doing anything, but here we are. I just need to know what's going on, right? But do you think he thinks it's a good idea that Jen McCabe is doing all this stuff?
Probably not. He probably knows to shut the F up.
Would you think it was a good idea if I brought a giant tray of orange slices to a soccer game, even though it was Mary's turn?
No, you got to stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, especially when we're all going to go to jail.
Finally, can I just mention one final thing that happened?
Sure.
That was pretty funny. They obviously talked about the FBI interviewing Jen McCabe. She cut the interview short. And he confronted her with the fact that she cut the interview short, that was one of the only law enforcement interviews that she ever cut short, right? And she said, yes, after a period of time, I said that I wanted to consult with counsel, and I did cut the interview short because I was uncomfortable. And then she said, but I talked to those people from that agency many times afterwards, many times. And I think I was helpful because, as you know, that investigation is now closed. She had the balls to say that. Keep in mind, that investigation was allegedly closed like 2 months ago.
Right.
So she believes this thing that she told the FBI in 2023 is the reason why 2 months ago, after Donald Trump takes office and tells his AGs to cease investigations
into police departments
and civil rights investigations. That's the DOJ order. That's when this closes, allegedly. But she believes it's something that she said, clearing up misinformation, as she put it. That is why the FBI has now closed the investigation. Can you imagine?
Yeah, that was so convincing.
Yeah. So she's very convincing.
Very convincing.
All right, Kevin. So that does it for the Readathon. Deep dive into Jen McCabe's cross-examination.
Good way to end the week.
I am certain I'll think of more little things that happen and be telling you about them over dinner or whatever. But for now,
how do you think Brian Albert's going to do? I mean, this is a good preview of sort of like how that
I cannot wait.
how that cross-examination.
I think he's just going to be stoic, be tough, hold the line. I was fucking my wife, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I am super looking forward to Brian Higgins, aka Kevin from Southie, because Jen McCabe said she hasn't spoken to him since John O'Keefe's wake. She has not spoken to him, she says, since February of 2022.
Yeah.
And we've been hearing again and again and again that he's no longer part of this circle. And yes, he only testified a year ago and very much stuck to his story, but I wonder how he will hold up with whatever new shit they seem to have. And when confronted with stuff, including perhaps the Kevin from Southie call. I don't know if that's going to come up or not, but I hope it does. All right, Kevin, thank you so much.
Partners in Crime Media.